It is the middle of the night at the most brutal race on Earth. 23 hours of racing are almost done, and the cars that were supposed to win are hurting. The mighty machines from Mercedes and Jaguar and Porsche are all in trouble. And then something comes screaming past them that should not even be there. It does not sound like a normal engine. It sounds like a wail, a high-pitched shriek unlike anything else on the track. Under the bodywork there are no pistons at all. Just a pair of small triangles spinning. The world had spent 20 years laughing at that engine. Every other car maker on the planet had tried it, failed, and thrown it in the bin. Only one stubborn company from Hiroshima refused to let it die. And on this night, that engine everyone had written off was about to beat the giants at their own game. Then, within a year, the people in charge would change the rules to make absolutely certain it could never happen again. This is the story of the Rotary engine. It is the engine the entire industry gave up on. It is the engine a small team of Japanese engineers refused to abandon, even when it nearly bankrupted their company. And it is the story of the single most unlikely victory in the history of motorsport, a victory so embarrassing to the establishment that they rewrote the rulebook to erase any chance of a repeat. To understand why one strange little engine still has a following that borders on religion, you have to go back to a moment when the whole world believed it was the future, and then, almost overnight, decided it was a dead end. Everyone walked away. Everyone except the one company with nothing left to lose. First, you need to understand what makes this engine so different, because it is genuinely unlike almost anything else that has ever powered a car. A normal engine works with pistons. They slam up and down, thousands of times a minute, and all that violent motion has to be converted into something that spins. It works, but it is full of parts fighting against each other. The Rotary threw all of that away. Instead of pistons pounding up and down, it used a rounded triangle, called a rotor, that simply spins inside a specially shaped chamber. As it turns, it draws in air and fuel, squeezes it, fires it, and pushes out the exhaust, all in one smooth circular motion. There is no violent stopping and starting. The result is an engine that is astonishingly small and light, has very few moving parts, and can spin to speeds that would tear a normal engine apart. And it makes that unmistakable, screaming sound. And it was not just clever on paper. That compact size meant engineers could place it low and far back in a car, which helps it handle. Its light weight meant less mass to throw around. And with so few parts moving in that smooth circle, it could feel almost turbine-like, revving higher and higher with an eagerness that a heavy bank of pistons could never match. On paper, it looked like it made the ordinary engine obsolete. The idea came from a German engineer named Felix Wankel, and when it appeared in the 1960s, the car world lost its mind. This looked like the future. It was smaller, smoother, and more powerful for its size than anything else. So the giants of the industry lined up to buy the rights to build it. Mercedes explored it. General Motors poured money into it. Manufacturers across Europe, America, and Japan all wanted a piece. For a few short years, it really did feel like the beginning of a new age. Engineers spoke about the Rotary the way people now talk about the next great leap in technology. They were certain this was the design that would finally sweep the old pounding pistons into history. And then reality arrived. The Rotary had a flaw right at its heart. The tips of that spinning triangle had to seal perfectly against the chamber wall, thousands of times a minute, under enormous heat and pressure. These little seals were called apex seals, and they wore out and failed. They left scars scratched into the housing, a problem so notorious that engineers gave it a grim nickname, the mark of the devil's fingernail. On top of that, the engine drank fuel and burned oil. Then in the 1970s the oil crisis hit, and fuel prices exploded. A thirsty engine was suddenly the last thing anybody wanted. One by one, the giants gave up. Mercedes walked away. General Motors killed its program. The company that had started it all struggled. The Rotary had been called the great future of the automobile. Now it was declared a dead end, and almost the entire industry abandoned it and never looked back. By the end of it, the Rotary had gone from being hailed as the engine of tomorrow to being treated as an embarrassing mistake. Boardrooms that had once fought for the rights to build it now wanted nothing to do with it. The dream was over. Or at least everyone assumed it was. Almost. Because on the other side of the world, in the city of Hiroshima, there was a smaller car maker that had made a very dangerous bet. That company was Mazda, and it had staked its entire future on the Rotary engine. For Mazda, there was no walking away. If the Rotary died, the company might die with it. So while everyone else quit, Mazda's engineers did something close to heroic. They refused. Inside Mazda, the job of saving the Rotary fell to a small group of engineers, and the story of what they did has become legend. They were led by a determined man named Kenichi Yamamoto, and the team became so devoted to their impossible mission that people compared them to the 47 samurai of an old Japanese tale, warriors bound by loyalty to see a hopeless duty through to the very end. Their biggest enemy was that fatal flaw, the failing seals that scarred the engine to death. So they attacked it with a patience that bordered on obsession. They tested seal after seal, material after material, design after design. They tried different metals, different carbons, endless combinations, searching for something that could survive the impossible conditions inside a spinning rotary. And slowly, painstakingly, they cracked it. They found seals that lasted. They tamed the devil's fingernail. With the flaw finally under control, Mazda could build the cars it had always dreamed of. It put the Rotary into sleek, light sports cars, and the most famous of them all became a worldwide hit, a car called the RX-7. Here was the payoff for all those years of stubbornness. A compact, screaming, brilliantly balanced sports car that drove like nothing else, powered by the engine the rest of the world had thrown away. Mazda had not just kept the Rotary alive, it had made it magic. For a company the size of Mazda, this was not just engineering. It was survival and it was pride. The giants of Detroit and Europe had walked away, but a modest firm from a city still rebuilding itself had found a way to make the impossible engine work. Every RX-7 that sold was a quiet answer to everyone who had said it could not be done. But sales were not the same thing as respect, and respect was what the engineers were really after. Deep down, the engineers wanted something more than sales. They wanted to prove to an industry that had laughed at them that their engine was not a curiosity or a compromise. And there was only one place on earth to settle that argument for good. A race in France, once a year, that is widely considered the hardest test a car and an engine can ever face. The 24 hours of Le Mans. Le Mans is not a sprint. It is a full day and a full night of racing, flat out, without stopping. It does not just reward speed. It punishes any weakness without mercy. A single fragile part, a single design that cannot take the strain, and you are finished. For an engine that the whole world still quietly believed was too fragile to be taken seriously, it was the ultimate trial. If the Rotary could survive Le Mans and win, no one could ever call it a joke again. So Mazda kept going back year after year as the plucky underdog. Its screaming Rotary cars became a favorite with the fans, but victory always slipped away. They gained experience, they got faster, they got tougher. And all the while they were building toward one car and one engine that would finally be ready to take on the best in the world and beat them. The car was called the 787B, and its engine was a masterpiece. Instead of the usual 2 rotors, this one had 4 of them spinning together to make around 700 horsepower and revving to a screaming 9,000 turns a minute. To this day, people describe the sound of that engine as one of the greatest noises ever made by a racing car. A banshee howl that you felt in your chest long before you saw the car. It was painted in a bright orange and green livery that nobody who saw it has ever forgotten. But almost no one gave it a real chance. Lined up against it was the full might of the establishment. There was the Mercedes team with a car that was simply faster than the Mazda, and widely expected to win. There were the Jaguars. There were the Porsches. This was the big money, the big names, the giants of world motorsport. And in the middle of them sat a screaming Rotary from Hiroshima, the engine the industry had abandoned, driven by a team that just would not quit. And there was one more thing working quietly in the Mazda's favor. The team ran a near-flawless race. Every pit stop was sharp, every driver changed smooth, every risk carefully judged. They did not need the fastest car if they could be the most disciplined team on the track. So while the giants chased lap times, the little orange car simply refused to make a single costly mistake, and in a race this long, that is worth more than raw speed. When the race began, the Mercedes were indeed quicker. On raw pace, the Mazda could not match them. But Le Mans is not won on raw pace. It is won by the car that can run flat out for 24 hours and simply refuse to brake. And this is where all those years of obsession, all that patience with tiny failing seals finally paid off. Hour after hour, through the afternoon, through the night, the Rotary just kept running. It was smooth, it was efficient, and it would not stop. Out in the darkness, the fans could track the Mazda without even seeing it. All they had to do was listen. While the other cars rumbled and roared, the Rotary screamed, a sound so strange and so piercing that it cut straight through the night air. Every time that howl came around again, it meant the same thing. The little engine that was supposed to brake was still out there, still running, still fighting. One of its drivers, a young Englishman named Johnny Herbert, along with his teammates, drove the car with everything they had. And as the long night wore on, the unthinkable started to happen. The faster cars began to falter. The mighty Mercedes ran into trouble. And the little orange car that no one had taken seriously kept circulating and climbing lap after lap, until it did something no Rotary had ever done and no Japanese car had ever done. It took the lead at the front of the greatest endurance race in the world. Inside the Mazda garage, nobody dared to celebrate. They had been here before, close to glory, only to watch the engine let them down at the cruelest possible moment. Every lap now felt like an eternity. The crew watched the temperatures, listened to the note of the engine, and waited for the one sound they had feared for 20 years. The sound of it finally breaking. As the final hours ticked down, the pressure was unbearable. Everyone waited for the Rotary to break the way it supposedly always did. It never came. The engine that the entire industry had written off as too fragile to matter ran perfectly for 24 hours straight, and crossed the line to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Johnny Herbert had driven so hard in that final stint that he was too exhausted to even climb out and celebrate. He had given everything, and so had the engine. It is difficult to overstate what had just happened. A small company from Hiroshima had beaten Mercedes, Jaguar, and Porsche at the hardest race on the planet. It was the first time a Japanese manufacturer had ever won Le Mans outright. And it was done with a Rotary engine, the strange little screaming triangle that every giant of the industry had tried and abandoned. The underdog had not just competed. It had won it all, and it had done it with the one thing everybody said could never be relied upon. You might think a victory like that would be celebrated forever, the little engine that beat the giants. And in a way it is. But there is a darker turn to this story, and it is the reason so many fans still speak about it with a hint of anger. Because the Rotary was never allowed to come back and do it again. For the very next season, the rules of the championship were changed. The new regulations required a specific type of large piston engine, the kind used in the top single-seater racing of the day. And that new rule did one thing very clearly. It shut the Rotary out completely. The engine that had just won the greatest endurance race in the world was, from that point on, no longer allowed to compete for the overall victory at all. Now, the officials had their reasons, and the sport was moving toward a new kind of engine anyway. But the timing was impossible to ignore. The Rotary wins the biggest prize in endurance racing, and almost immediately the door is slammed shut behind it. To this day, a huge number of enthusiasts are convinced of a simple truth. The establishment could not stand being beaten by the engine it had all rejected, so it made sure that engine would never get the chance to embarrass them again. Whatever the real reason, the outcome was the same. That victory in 1991 became a moment frozen in time. No Rotary engine has ever won that race again because no Rotary has ever been allowed to try. For decades, that single win by a small Japanese company stood completely alone, the only time in history that a spinning triangle beat the world's best pistons on the sport's greatest stage. They could not beat it on the track, so they beat it in the rulebook. So why does this old story still matter so much? Why do people fall in love with the Rotary all over again every single year? Because that engine came to stand for something bigger than horsepower. It stood for refusing to quit when the whole world tells you that you are wrong. The Rotary lived on in the road cars long after that famous night. It powered later versions of the RX-7, a car that became one of the most beloved machines in the entire tuning and drift world, and then the RX-8 after it. Enthusiasts learned to worship the little engine, to chase its wild high revving power, its featherweight balance, and above all that unmistakable scream. To this day, dropping a Rotary into a build or keeping one of these cars alive is treated almost as an act of devotion, a way of honoring an engine that dared to be different. There is a particular kind of person who hears that screaming engine once and is changed by it forever. They will spend years and serious money keeping a temperamental Rotary alive, rebuilding it, tuning it, and forgiving its thirst and its quirks, all for that feeling and that sound. To the outside world it can look like madness. To them, it is loyalty to the most romantic underdog the car world has ever produced. And that is the real legacy. Not just the trophy, though the trophy is glorious. It is the idea that a small team can outthink and outlast the biggest names in the world, armed with nothing but a strange idea that everyone else gave up on. Mazda's engineers were told for 20 years that they were wasting their time. And then, for one perfect day in June, the engine the world laughed at was the best engine on the entire planet. That is the story of the Rotary. The industry invented it and then abandoned it. A small, stubborn company in Hiroshima refused to let it die. And when that engine finally silenced every doubter by winning the hardest race on Earth, the establishment did the only thing it had left. It changed the rules so it could never happen again. You cannot buy a better underdog story than that, and it actually happened. The engineers who saved the Rotary did not build the most sensible engine of their time. they built the bravest one. They kept faith with an idea long after everyone else had given up on it, and they were rewarded with a victory that can never be taken away, no matter how many rules get rewritten. They genuinely do not make companies that stubborn anymore, and everyone who loves these machines knows it. If you want to know about another engine the giants tried to bury, and the underdog that refused to stay buried, that story is waiting for you right here. Subscribe to Overrun and we will keep digging up the legends, the rule breakers, and the builds the big names quietly hoped you would forget.